Welcome to the Aligned Powerhouse, the podcast for executive women who are done leading from burnout and ready to rise from alignment. I'm your host, Dr. Brittany McGeehan, licensed psychologist, high performance and mindset coach, and guide for high-achieving women who are ready to lead, live, and love without abandoning themselves. Here, we unpack the nervous system truths, mindset shifts, and emotional patterns that drive your leadership so you can build power from the inside out. Let's get into it. All right, guys, I am so excited to be talking to you today about one of the most misunderstood hidden habit of self-sabotage that I see in relationships with high performers. So I'm really excited to talk about this because I think this is the dark side, the underbelly of healing as a high performer. And that is this idea that we get stuck in this perfectionism, this desire to get it right, this I want to do this well enough. And that applies to their healing when that's the very thing that we are seeking to heal from. Now, more specifically, I want to talk about this as it relates to relationships with high performers. This is something I don't hear a lot of people talking about, and yet is running so many relationships into the ground. So here it is. We're just going to lay it all out, right? What I see from nearly every single client that comes through my door is there is fear of rupture in a relationship, specifically with their romantic partners, okay? So these women are coming through the door and typically they're saying, I want to work on myself for my marriage. I want to make myself better for this relationship. Or there's another category of women and they are saying my relationship is strained and I want to be better across the board, right? This makes sense. This is why you pay someone, it's why you bring in an expert. Well, what I see as we are moving along this journey is that typically these women get into a space where they are thinking about every single possible angle before they are willing to say something to their partner that might possibly spark a reaction or a negative response. So there's a real fear of rupture within the relationship. So let's unpack this. Okay. What I want you to hear, if you hear nothing else, I want you to pull out that journal, I want you to pull out those notes, and I want you to write down, it is not about the rupture. It is about the repair. Rupture does not kill relationships. It is the lack of repair, the lack of effective repair, and the lack of quick repair that kills a relationship, runs it into the ground. Because here's the thing, is that rupture is a non-negotiable, right? Relationship by nature is between two imperfect people who have decided we are going to cohabitate and build a life and a legacy together. That is incredibly challenging. This is not about building a business where you can pull all the different strings, where you can bring in 75 strategists and decide, right? No, this is a living, breathing thing. In a relationship, there's person A, person B, and thing C, which is the relationship in between the two of you, right? It is the thing that you will stand the closest to throughout your lifetime and is going to evoke your unfinished business because we are all married to our mothers. We are all married to our fathers. Despite what you may believe, you have married the very person who's going to offer you the opportunity to get a corrective experience based on the wounds that you experience in childhood. Even if you believe they are the polar opposite, chances are there are similarities specific to your unfinished business. So with that lens, now I want you to think about having this additional pressure of, I can't mess things up. I can't say anything that's going to spark a fight. I don't want to get it wrong. And guys, what I want you to hear is that mentality, that mindset is the very thing that's going to run your relationship into the ground. So by the end of this podcast, you are going to understand what mindset shift we can unlock to strengthen these relationships, both professional and personal relationships, instantly. Simply by being able to write that into your programming and allow it to be a part of the way that you see the world. So let's really unpack this, okay? The habit here that we are talking about is perfectionism driven avoidance. I'm going to say that again. What we are discussing today is perfectionism driven avoidance, specifically avoidance of conflict or mistakes, right? Perfectionism. But what it does to women who are operating in this upper echelon, this true, like high performers where the stakes are incredibly high, is it flattens you. It creates fear. It says, I can't actually move forward. And here's the reason that high performers in particular are so susceptible to this habit. I want you to think about what it is like to be overseeing a company where your revenue is bringing in like billions of dollars, right? Billions with a B. Or perhaps you are scaling your own company and you are fast approaching the 7-figure mark. You have people's jobs that are on the line. You have revenue that is on the line. All the while, I mean, if you are in leadership, if you are in management, if you are in the C-suite, the name of your game is appearance, right? You have visibility, which adds and compounds to that pressure. I like to tell the example of if you're on a plane and there's turbulence, who do we look to decide whether or not this turbulence is an actual issue or not, right? I am looking at that flight attendant. And if you're not worried, I'm not worried. But I tell you what, if I look up and that flight attendant has a little bit of fear on their face, if they are concerned, if they're kind of looking at their other fellow flight attendants, I'm a little concerned. And by a little, I mean a whole lot, okay? We are the flight attendant that everyone looks to say, are we okay or not? Not to mention, this is the role that you play in parenting. So if you are a parent, you're getting it from two ends, right? This visibility by nature is going to cause you to disconnect with yourself and really focus on how am I being perceived. It is so incredibly challenging to do that while also saying, wow, that turbulence was really scary and I'm feeling really nervous. I'm going to go ahead and allow myself to have a facial expression, a grimace. I'm going to move my body in a certain way, right? We cannot stay that connected between our mind and our body if you are overtly putting your resources toward focusing on all of the things around you and how you're being perceived, right? And all of this is expedited by this idea of the stakes being so incredibly high. Because the reality for the women who are operating in the C-suite is this isn't just a mindset block. This isn't just something that you can say, all right, well, I need you to just have some self-compassion and then everything is going to be fine, right? There are genuine consequences to the way that they are leading their teams, pushing their companies forward, and the way that they are interacting with their fellow C-suiters, right? It's all very political. It's all very nuanced and system-based, and you're constantly evaluating resources and where they're being allocated, right? The stakes are high. There are very real consequences, not just I'm going to be perceived in a different way. Like, no, you might tank a company, you might tank a team, right? Now you take all of that, and that is a perfect cocktail for someone who is going to get really high strung, right? Like feel my shoulders come up as I'm saying that. The issue is that being able to operate within this system, right? It might actually bode well for that company. You probably need that. You probably need the ability to continue to put one foot in front of the other despite the stress and the high stakes. But I see this bleeding into personal relationships, and that's where it becomes incredibly sticky and challenging. Okay. Now, here's the way I see it showing up is that I will see women who avoid hard conversations until that resentment starts to build. And now we're angry. Specifically, we're feeling victim anger of like, I can't do anything about this. I can't believe you've done this to me. I don't understand why you won't just listen to me. How do you not know that I need you to step up and be the man and lead me? And how do you not know that I want to spend more time with you, but specifically, I want you to go and schedule things for me. And I want to feel pursued in that way. And I'm not going to talk about it until I am pissed. Rather than noticing it and being like, this is an area in our relational bucket where I'm feeling a little bit depleted. I'm going to go ahead and have this conversation, right? There's fear. So we avoid it. So that is flag number one. Other one I see is overcompensating with overworking or fixing instead of actually connecting. So this is tricky because overcompensating, overworking, overfunctioning tends to be the name of the game if you're operating in C-suite at work, right? So what I see is women come home, and as soon as husband starts to share that he was having a hard day or he's struggling with his relationship with the kids in X, Y, and Z way, they go into problem solving mode, right? And they start running through their checklist. And have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? When in reality, and usually when we flip the script, your partner just wants to be seen. Usually we just want to be seen when we are sharing something that we're struggling with our partner. Because guys, we are excellent problem solvers. We are great at executing. What we need is to feel seen and heard. We also need to be able to offer that skill set to the people around us. But when you're in this place of being afraid of a rupture in the relationship, you get stuck in this doing mode, doing. And so you just default to overcompensating, overfunctioning. I am going to be the prefrontal cortex, the thing that makes the decisions and makes the plans. I'm going to be that for my partner. This is not connecting. I say that again. This is not connection. Overfunctioning is not connection, right? It lives in your prefrontal cortex. It is not like intimacy is into me, see. It is just see this person as a human being. Not as a project, not as a thing to be fixed. We are looking to be seen as human beings. That sounds really hard. I'm wondering if you want a hug. What was that like for you? Because whenever you ask these kinds of connection-based questions, what you're communicating to your partner is their feelings are valid and they are safe. Versus when you get into a space of overfunctioning, what you're telling them is to go shove those feelings into a box. I don't want to see them. Let's fix it, right? Which is usually the message that we have been handed in childhood. So here's the third flag that I see is that they freeze or withdraw whenever they make a mistake instead of leaning in. So they start questioning, does this have something to do with me? Am I a failure? And rather than jumping in, leaning in, getting curious, how did I make this mistake? Where did it come from? How can I pivot or adjust or change on the next round? They get real quiet. They start to pull back from the relationship itself, right? There's not a very healthy relationship with mistakes, specifically at home. So partner gives feedback. It's really hard to hear. Hey, you're really intense and I wish you weren't that intense at home. I really just want to play a lot more, right? Now, this might not necessarily be a mistake, but rather than leaning in, asking some clarifying questions, what does this look like? We notice a defensive posture starts to come on and we tend to you can usually feel your body withdraw, right? We get really quiet. Okay. Or, okay, tell me more about that, but they're not engaging, right? This is freezing or withdrawing when you make a mistake. All of this is related to the nervous system patterns that you are engaging in, right? So fight, flight, freeze, specifically within your relational dynamics. If there is a huge cognitive load in terms of fear of not getting it perfect, this is automatically going to put you in a place of fight or flight. Or I guess also freeze, fawn, those two, right? In a place of a sympathetic response, which is survival. It is not possible to also be in a place of connection, okay? Whenever you're operating in this sympathetic response. And the issue with that is that the place that we connect, the place that we feel energized, the place where we can co-create and feel joy is in the parasympathetic, right? We have to feel safe with our partner in order to experience these feelings. Well, if you are operating in a place that's pushing you into sympathetic, you're never going to be able to experience this in the relationship, and you're going to see a relational deadening over time. So here's the thing, right? Is that every relationship whether it is personal or professional, is going to have a rupture. It just is. And that is 10 times true in our romantic relationships. The issue where this becomes a problem is if we are not quickly and effectively able to repair. That's where we stay in a place of resentment is growing. That's where it feels like the same conversation is being rehashed over and over and over again, right? My work teaches clients to be able to recognize there has been a rupture, and I'm handing them a set of steps so that they know how to navigate that rupture. Because the rupture itself does not have to feel personal. It doesn't have to feel like the end of the world, and not everyone believes me until they actually go through it. But when you stop fearing rupture, that is when all of you is allowed to come to the table. That's when you are able to find the courage, which requires resources, to be able to say, I'm dissatisfied with our sex life, or I'm dissatisfied with the way that you are pursuing me. I don't feel fulfilled in this relationship. That's where you find the resources to be able to look your partner in their eye and say, I love you, and I don't want to be your mother. In fact, I won't be your mother. This relationship has to evolve because in its current iteration, it's no longer serving me, right? All of that requires resources that we are leaking and giving away if we are stuck in this place of anxiety about the rupture itself. Because the strongest relationships that I see are the ones that know and trust that rupture is a part of the process. Therefore, all of me gets to come to the table to be seen and heard, and it might be messy. This is what I tell clients. I want you to show up and be messy. Because as you do that, you are gaining those resources back, right? Like fighting is just inevitable. It's about how well can we do it? So I'm not saying that rupture is the same thing as sitting and calling someone names. I am not saying it's the same thing as raising your voice. I am not talking about emotional and verbal abuse. I'm talking about rupture, right? I am talking about a moment where we no longer feel attuned or connected to our partner. And we're kind of like, oh, like, who are you, right? It is very different than abuse. But the reality is, like, I saw this study from the NIH that was done, and it was saying that in a survey of 2,000 Americans, right, on average, those couples were fighting 58 times per year. So that is more than once per week about finances. And we know that finances is at the top of the reasons that couples get a divorce. So what this tells me is that fighting is inevitable. Arguing is inevitable. It's not the enemy. In fact, it is an invitation to deeper intimacy. And if you can master your nervous system, if you can master your internal landscape to notice when that defensiveness or like as the rupture is happening, right? To notice what is happening inside of you. Are you catastrophizing? Are you getting defensive and a mask is coming online? Where are you wanting to be pulled? Right? When you can notice those things, this is actually an opportunity for a deeper connection with the person in front of you because you are allowing yourself to be seen. So repair is going to build trust 1,000,000 times faster, more effectively, and more sustainably than never making a mistake ever will. Like, I wouldn't trust someone who said they never made a mistake. Certainly not in their relationships, right? We are looking to build more trust, not to avoid mistakes. So that is your simple shift that I want you to go and start implementing today, is moving from mistake avoidance to repair mastery. I want you to feel like queen of the universe, Jedi of everything, because you know you don't have to be afraid of making a mistake or experiencing rupture in a relationship because you can simply fix it on the other end. This is something I prime all of my clients when they come in on their kickoff calls or their intakes. I tell them, FYI, I'm a very messy person. I'm also a person of high integrity. And what I know to be true is that you are going to get the most out of this process and out of our work together if I am willing to risk possibly hurting your feelings sometimes. Now, again, does that mean I'm being ugly? Absolutely not. But it does mean I'm going to tell you something that might be hard to hear rather than sitting in a place of avoiding fear of you getting mad at me simply because I don't want you to be angry, right? Like, no, I'm going to be honest. And on the other end of it, we're going to work through it every single time. And guys, this builds a tremendously secure relationship. Because here's what repair actually looks like. It looks like acknowledging impact without self-shaming. This sounds like it makes complete sense to me that you experienced pain after I said X, Y, and Z, right? After I gave you feedback that your bad mood is really hard for me to tolerate, it makes sense to me that you felt a lot of pain, right? So notice I'm acknowledging my words had harm. I don't know if this is the example I want to die on, right? But what I'm not doing is saying, and I'm such a horrible wife for saying that. I should not have done that. I am so sorry. Like, no, I'm absolutely sorry about the impact that it had on you. And gosh, I was doing the best that I could. And I know that we are capable of continuing to clarify, engage in this conversation, lean in so that we can both have a solid understanding of where it is that both of us are standing, right? On this issue, whatever it is. Repair also looks like regulating before you're responding. So this might mean you need to go take a 15-minute break, go for a walk, go and regulate your nervous system, but it means being able to talk in an even tone of voice, to feel and engage with curiosity. Like that is a green flag for regulation. We cannot access curiosity. And I'm not talking about the calculated curiosity where you're like leading someone into something, right? I've seen clients do this where it's like, I'm just curious as to why you would think that it's okay to say that, right? Like that's not curiosity. That is a regression. That is a very polished teen. That is not curiosity. The other flag to look for, right, in repair is clarifying what the other person needs. So I always tell people take turns. Each person gets a turn being the sender, and then they get a turn being the receiver. But really clarifying, okay, in this relationship, what is it that you need to feel seen and valued and like a whole person? And I'm not even just talking about what they need from you as their partner. What do they need to be doing? Because guys, we cannot rescue our partners from themselves. I'm going to say that again. We cannot rescue our partners from being themselves. We cannot rescue them from themselves, right? If they choose not to steward and take care of their body, that's on them. We cannot do it for them. We cannot make healthier decisions for them. We cannot go and get a massage for them. We cannot step back from some of the projects at work for them. There's an element of like, they are going to have to show up for themselves, like, period. At the end of the day, they are going to have to do some of this on their own. And then also, maybe they need things to be delivered in a different way. Perhaps they need challenging conversations to happen in a different venue or setting, right? I always tell people, if you have a hard conversation coming up, prep your partner, go see a movie, go have dinner, then come home and have the conversation. Go and fill that emotional tank up, then come back and have the conversation, right? Repair also looks like following through quickly. So say, do, correspondence is huge in relationships and trust building. Then I know if my partner says they are going to work on lowering their tone of voice, or they are going to work on not going into overfunctioning and fix-it mode, I know that I can believe them. Because when we're saying that we're going to do things and we don't actually follow through, it's eroding at the foundation of the relationship itself. Okay. And here's what this gives you guys in terms of payoff. We are looking at stronger trust. Honestly, stronger trust and loyalty, like not just from your personal relationships, but this bleeds into loyalty and trust from your teams, because they know that you are a person of integrity and they know Even if you present something in a board meeting, even if you say something to a client and it really didn't sit well with them, they know that they can come back and they can share that feedback, or vice versa, that whenever you give them feedback, it's going to be done in a respectful and meaningful way. And even if there is a rupture in your relationship, you will continue to work on it, right? Of course, this is going to yield more trust and intimacy at home, but it's also going to provide less anxiety about messing up because you know that you can recover. Guys, this is freeing up those resources to reallocate them to other issues, because there will always be something to be working on. There will always be a project, whether it's at home or it is at work. I mean, that is part of what gives life its meaning, is having a challenge and figuring out how you're going to overcome it. If you want to be in that space of constantly pushing the envelope, which my clients do, right? They do not stop iterating. They don't stop growing and wanting more. You need the resources in order to do it and not let your personal life fall apart. And the kind of confidence that you gain whenever you feel this trust in your ability to repair, guys, this is what commands influence. When someone is truly not afraid of experiencing rupture, and now I'm not saying they're not afraid to be a dick, right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they are not afraid to say something that's going to be, I'm not as polished or whatever, right? They're not afraid to say something and experience that rupture in the relationship. This is what makes me listen to them, because these are the people who are saying things that are unpopular. These are the people saying things in rooms where we are all thinking it. These are the people who have vision. They are seeing things that I can't see yet because they have the resources to be able to push. And this is where, of course, you're going to see increased profit margins. You are going to see exponentially faster execution. You're going to have ease in how you are navigating the systems at work, and more importantly, how you're navigating at home. These are the people who have safe, genuine relationships with their children well into adulthood. These are the people who enjoy their kids, right? They like talking about them. They light up. And they're honest about parenting is not always fun, but it is an adventure, right? They are the ones who know how to engage in a full and rich life because they have the resources to experience joy. So guys, if this episode was resonating with you, I want you to truly think about the takeaway that the strongest relationships are not built by avoiding mistakes. They are built by repairing well and repairing fast. So the challenge in that takeaway is this week, I want you to notice one place that you have avoided repair and take one step, just one step, toward closing that loop. And I will give you a script in case you need it, right? But it could sound like, hey babe, I noticed that whenever you scheduled that networking meeting without checking in with me in the evening, I felt like my time was disrespected. And I understand that work is important and networking is a part of that. But I felt as though you don't value or respect my time because you didn't check in with me, right? That is something that possibly could be risky. That is part of how that conversation can start, right? And then it feels really important to me that in the future, you're checking in with me first because we are a team and that's how teams work, right? Alrighty, guys, that is all I have for you today. Alrighty, friend, that is all for today's episode of the Aligned Powerhouse Podcast. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And do me a favor, if this episode resonated, I want you to share it with another powerhouse woman in your life who is ready to lead and love from a place of self-trust. And don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick rating or review. It really does help more women find this work. New episodes drop every week. Until then, lead with self-trust and let yourself be seen.